Hi guys, so today's lesson is aimed at National 5 Practical Cookery and we're going to be making bruschetta for your practical lesson. The reason we're doing that is today we're focusing on your practical cookery skills and techniques. So the skills that you're going to be developing are boiling, grilling, baking, and in the processes you're going to be slicing, you possibly will be grating, you're going to be blanching and concassing your tomato. Okay, so I'm just going to run through those terms for you quickly just now. To blanch means that you're plunging something into hot water just to cook it very quickly and then refreshing it in cold water. That cools it down quite quickly and retains the nutrient content and the colour. Okay, to concass is an Italian term that means to roughly chop. But be able to do that, it's specifically used for tomatoes, and to do that we're going to need to skin it and de-seed it. Okay, but that will all come clear as we go through this. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so let's run through the ingredients that you're going to need to make this dish. First of all, you're going to need a baton or French baguette. You're going to need tomatoes, garlic clove, 25 grams of cheese if you prefer to have cheese on your bruschetta, that's optional, fresh basil, seasoning, and olive oil. I've gone for 3 tablespoons of olive oil there. The balsamic vinegar I've used as a glaze to decorate and garnish my plate, and I'll show you that later on. Equipment wise, you're going to need your bowl, your chopping board, your grater if you need the cheese, your serrated knife, so that is the knife with the serrated edge there that's going to cut through the loaf, your vegetable knife, pastry brush, and your tongs. Don't forget your paper towel at the side. For SQA purposes, this is always classed as equipment that you're going to need as well. Okay, you will need to write that down in any equipment lists you come to use. And the oven gloves there as well is essential because we're working with the hot oven. Okay, you're also going to need a small pot of water there with enough water in it that's going to cover your tomato. Okay, so I've gone for just over half. That should do to cover. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put that on to boil. Before I do that, I'll talk to you about the difference between simmering and boiling, because this is something that could come up in your SQA question paper and you need to be able to explain the difference. So when you are simmering, it's small bubbles on the surface, and when you're boiling, it's big bubbles on the surface of the pot. Okay, so I'm going to turn that on. And I'm going to wait till that comes up to the boil. Okay. So I'm going to get started now with my food preparation. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to slice my baton. Now, what I'm going to do with this, clear my surface a little bit. You should always keep a tidy work surface as you go, and that's why you'll use your paper towel at the side for any scraps. Okay. As I slice this, I'm going to slice this diagonally, and that's going to give me a slightly bigger surface area to place my tomatoes and basil mixture. I want to make sure that I'm slicing evenly so they all cook at the same time as well. A smaller slice will dry out a lot faster than a larger slice. So if I go for about 2 centimetre slices and keep that uniform across the 4 slices that you're going to prepare. So as I said, keep a nice tidy surface. I've got my paper towel at the side there so I can just sweep my crumbs over to the side. Giving me a tidy space here. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my pastry brush and my oil. Now I'm not going to use all of this because some of this oil will be used with my tomato and basil mixture, but I'm going to coat each side of the sliced baguette in the oil. This is going to help it to crisp up in the oven. Okay, so now that I've basted these with olive oil, I'm going to transfer them onto my baking tray and put them into the oven. Your oven should be set at 200 degrees temperature. Okay. So my oven is already heated up. I'm going to use my oven gloves now so I don't burn my hands. And place these in. These are only going to take about 8 minutes, and I will turn them halfway through so that they are evenly browned on both sides. Okay, so I'm going to come back and check them in 4 minutes. Okay, so because this needs to be in for 4 minutes, I'm going to use my timer on my oven to tell me when I need to come back to this. Okay, you might want to use your phone, or if you've got a clock timer, or even just your watch, then you can set that as a wee reminder. Okay guys, so just to demonstrate what we're looking for when your water is boiling, you can see that the bubbles are bubbling quite furiously. They're coming to the surface. To reduce that down to a simmer, I'm just going to lower the temperature, and then you can start to see the ferocity reducing a little, and it's bubbling a little gentler now. Okay, so that would be more of a simmer. Now, that's come up to temperature, so what I'm going to do is prepare the tomatoes to go into the water. So the tomatoes need to go into the water to help the skin to peel off easily. But before we do that, we need to make a small cross incision along the bottom of the tomato. And that means that as this is plunged into the hot water, it's going to remove the peel a lot easier from these points here. You'll see how that works once it's ready. It only needs to sit in the water for about a minute or so until the peel starts to come away. Right, so the tomatoes have been sliced and they can now go into the water. I'm going to use my tongs so that I don't burn myself if the water was to splash. Okay, now they'll only take about a minute or so until the skin starts to come away from the flesh. Okay, so that's my timer going off now. That's telling me that I need to turn my bruschetta. Right, so I'm going to turn these over now so that they crisp up on the other side. Again, using my tongs for safety so I don't burn my hands. Okay, and that can go back in the oven and set the timer again for the further 4 minutes. In the meantime, we can get on with chopping our basil. So I've plucked from the fresh basil plants there some of the larger leaves. I've given them a rinse and pat dry. So now all I'm going to do is roughly chop these. Okay, so holding them all together using my vegetable knife, I'm just going to shred the basil leaves this way, and then turn it and shred it the other way. Once I'm done with the basil, that's going to get placed into the bowl with the remaining olive oil, and I can then season that and wait for the tomatoes to go into that. Okay, so the basil goes in. And I'm going to use my Himalayan salt. Give that a good season. And some pepper. Okay, and I'm just going to wait for the tomatoes to be ready. Okay, so these tomatoes have been in for about just over a minute, and they're starting to separate now, and you can see how the flesh just wants to come away from the tomato there. So that's ready. And I've plunged these in cold water so that they're now a bit easier to handle. Okay. Now my timer has gone off on my oven, so I'm going to remove my bruschetta toasts now as well. And you can see that these have started to crisp up nicely. Right, again I'm going to use my tongs and transfer them across to my chopping board. Right, so the next step that we're going to need to do is to transfer some garlic flavour onto our bruschetta toasts there. So to do that, you need your garlic clove. You're going to need to top and tail the garlic clove and remove the skin. Now we're not chopping the garlic up this time, we're simply going to rub the garlic over the toasted bread. And there's enough oil in the garlic that the flavour will seep through into the bread. Okay, so you can see how that's starting to score the garlic there and release that garlic flavour. Okay, so I'm just going to move those to one side. I'm going to pop them on my plate just now while I prepare my tomatoes. So, as I said earlier, the tomatoes have now cooled down and the skin is starting to peel quite easily away from the flesh. So that was a technique of blanching that allowed us to do that. What we're now going to do is remove the skin and the seeds. Remember your paper towel at the side there for all your scraps. Makes it a lot easier in tidying everything away at the end. Okay, so skin away, and then we're going to cut the tomato in half and then again into quarters. Okay, and then you can use the knife or a teaspoon to release the flesh, the seeds and the innards from the flesh. Just be extremely careful with this. Because it is very slippery. If you're a bit nervous using the knife for that, then use the teaspoon, because it is very slippery and a bit tricky. This one's coming away a bit easier. Okay, so now that we've removed all of the seeds and the skin, what we're going to do now is concassing, and that, as I said earlier, is roughly chopping. So I'm going to cut them down into into about centimetre size strips. Very careful with your fingers, and then cut them again so that they are smaller dices. Once we've done that, that can then go into the olive oil and the basil mixture, and we're going to give that a good mix around. So all of my tomatoes and basil and oil and seasoning are now in the bowl. I'm just going to give that a good mix around so everything's coated in the oil. And then very simply I'm just going to spoon over some of the tomato mixture onto my bruschetta toasts. At that point it's entirely up to you if you want to serve them as they are, or if you want to top them with a little bit of grated cheese. Try to portion this evenly. Alright, so what I'll do is I'll just demonstrate how to grate a little cheese on a couple of these. So if you were grating, then you would take the large side of the grater, okay, and grate your block of cheese onto that. Be very careful with your fingers, especially ladies with your acrylic nails. And I'm going to sprinkle this onto, I'll just put it on two, and then what's going to happen is that's just going to go, these two with the cheese are going to go under the grill just for a couple of minutes. just to melt the cheese. So I'm very carefully, I don't want to knock any of this off, so I'm going to very carefully, using my tongs again, lift the ones with cheese onto the grill pan and pop these under the grill. The grill is really, really hot, so it doesn't stop heating, unlike the oven. The oven will, if you set it for 200 degrees, it will only reach 200 degrees and stop heating there. The grill, however, will keep on generating heat. So that's just going to go under just for a couple of minutes until my cheese is melted. The toast is already browning, or browned, so I don't want it to really get too much darker than that. Okay, that's starting to melt now. I don't want them cooking any more than that really, because my toast is going to start to get a little bit too dark. So I'm going to take these out of the grill, turn my grill off, and I can close the grill door now. So that's me ready to serve these now. Very carefully, again using the tongs, and I don't want to drop these. I'm going to place these onto my serving dish. And what I want you guys to start thinking about with your dishes is garnishing. When it comes to your SQA exam, you are allocated marks for the amount of skill you demonstrate when you garnish. So what you could do, I've put a little balsamic reduction on here, so all that was simply was the balsamic vinegar in a saucepan, a couple of tablespoons, and as it says in the name, reduced it down so it's quite intense in flavour and a little bit thicker, so it's more of a syrup, and I've decorated the plate quite simply there. You could also drizzle a little olive oil over your dish. Okay. The important thing to remember is you must demonstrate a skill. So drizzling oil would not be classed as a skill, but it certainly helps to lift the colour and the appearance of the plate. The vinegar reduction would be demonstrating a skill because you have simmered and created a reduction. What you could do, you could not just place on a couple of pieces of basil onto your plate, because again that doesn't demonstrate skill. But if you wanted to finely dice or shred your basil and place that somewhere decoratively on your plate, then that's the sort of thing that would be acceptable and get you marks. Okay, right guys, that's us completed our bruschetta. I hope that's been helpful. Leave your feedback, comments, and like and subscribe. Thanks very much. Bye.